Hello everyone. Welcome to this national online workshop on refreshing concepts in classical and statistical thermodynamics. This workshop is organized by Ethiraj College for Women, Chennai. I am Gopalakrishnan. I am a faculty in the Department of Chemistry, DG Vaishnav College, Chennai. In this lecture, I am going to talk about Introduction to Statistical Thermodynamics. Okay, let's get into the topic. Yeah, this statistical thermodynamics was developed by many scientists. Okay, I have given a few scientists who contributed more in statistical thermodynamics, okay, in the development of statistical thermodynamics. Maxwell, Boltzmann, Gibbs, Einstein, Fermi, Landa, and Bose. So the statistical thermodynamics that we are comfortably studying, right, are actually due to these scientists. In this lecture, I am going to discuss some of the fundamental aspects of statistical thermodynamics. Right. We know very well that macroscopic properties of a substance, okay, that is properties associated with the bulk matter, can be determined using classical thermodynamics. So using classical thermodynamics, we can determine macroscopic properties associated with the substance or a bulk matter. Similarly, microscopic properties, that is properties associated with atoms, molecules, ions, etc., can be determined using quantum mechanics. Okay, so quantum mechanics is used to find the microscopic properties associated with atoms and molecules. Now, where this statistical thermodynamics actually come in picture? See, we know very well macroscopic properties of the bulk substance, okay, macroscopic properties of bulk matter definitely depends on the microscopic particles or constituent particles that is associated with the that is present in the bulk matter. Okay, so macroscopic properties definitely depends on microscopic properties of the constituent particles present in the bulk substance. But now the question is, okay, how to connect these two? Can we just add microscopic properties of each and every individual constituent particles so that we can get macroscopic property? No. You will never get correct answer if you do like this. Then how to address this problem? This problem can be addressed, okay, using the statistical thermodynamics. Okay. So what we are going to do with the statistical thermodynamics? We are going to calculate macroscopic properties of bulk matter. Okay, we are going to determine macroscopic properties of bulk matter using the microscopic properties of the constituent particles present in the bulk matter. Okay, yeah. So using microscopic properties, we are going to calculate the macroscopic properties. Right, and I already told you that microscopic properties can be obtained from quantum mechanics and macroscopic properties can be obtained from classical thermodynamics. So statistical thermodynamics acting as a bridge between quantum mechanics and the classical thermodynamics. Okay, then see, bulk substance is made up of microscopic particles, and these microscopic particles can be divided into two: distinguishable particles and indistinguishable particles. What are distinguishable particles and what are indistinguishable particles? Suppose if you take a crystal, right, in a crystal, every atom, right, every atom and every constituent particle, right, present at a particular location, right? So if I take this as x-axis and this as y-axis, suppose, right, then at any instant of time I can distinguish this particle from this particle because they have different Cartesian coordinates, right? So these type of particles are called distinguishable particles, right? You can distinguish the particles at any instant of time, right? Listen, then what are indistinguishable particles? Suppose you take say hydrogen gas. In hydrogen gas consists of hydrogen molecules, right? All hydrogen molecules are having same size, okay, same mass, okay. But can we distinguish one molecule from another molecule, because these molecules are randomly moving, right? So it is very difficult, right? We cannot distinguish, right, one hydrogen molecule from either hydrogen molecule. Similarly, if you take a metal piece, right, the free electrons of metal, right, can we distinguish one free electron from the other free electron? We cannot. These particles, right, are called indistinguishable particles, okay. Distinguishable particles, right, for distinguishable particles we are going to use the statistics called classical statistics, right? So for distinguishable particle we are going to use classical statistics, and for indistinguishable particles we are going to use quantum statistics, okay. So we have classical statistics and we have quantum statistics, right? Now Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics. What is classical statistics? Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics, right? The statistics introduced by Maxwell and Boltzmann, right? This statistics is called classical statistics. What are quantum statistics? Fermi-Dirac statistics, Fermi-Dirac statistics, and Bose-Einstein statistics. These two, right, are called quantum statistics. So keep this in your mind. Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics is applicable for distinguishable particles, and Fermi-Dirac statistics, Bose-Einstein statistics, these two are applicable for indistinguishable particles, right? Then in statistical thermodynamics, actually we have two types: equilibrium statistical thermodynamics and non-equilibrium statistical thermodynamics. Participants, in this lecture I am going to discuss only equilibrium statistical thermodynamics, okay. I am not going to discuss this. Then you can apply this equilibrium statistical thermodynamics for independent particles. You can also apply this for dependent particles. What is meant by independent particle? Independent particle means, listen, suppose if there is no attraction or repulsion exists between particles, right, then we call those particles as independent particles, okay. There will be no attraction and no repulsion exists between particles. What is meant by dependent particle? Yeah, if there is attraction or repulsion exists between particles, then we call those particles as dependent particles, right? In this lecture I am going to discuss only independent particles, right? So we are going to discuss equilibrium statistical thermodynamics for independent particles in this lecture, okay. Then okay, before begin with these different statistics, okay, let me introduce some of the terms that we are using in statistical thermodynamics. Okay, the first one, right, the first one is the macro state, also called configuration, also called distribution. Participants, see in different books, okay, different uh, terms people are using, okay, but keep this in your mind: macro state, configuration, distribution, all are one and the same, okay. Now what is meant by macro state of a system, right? Macro state of a system is the specification of number of particles, right, is the specification of number of particles in each quantized energy levels correspond to the particles of the system for a given total energy E and a given total number of particles N. So for a given total energy E and for the given total number of particles N, right, how many particles are present in each energy levels of the system, okay, that specification is what we call as macro state. Okay, listen, the energy levels, these energy levels are obtained, right, using quantum mechanics, okay. These are all energy levels corresponds to the particles of the system which which are obtained from quantum mechanics. Okay. Now see, for this particle, right, in this example, see, for these particles, so we have 5 quantized energy levels, and in the lowest level, ground level, we have 3 particles. In the next level, we have 2 particles. Third level is empty. Fourth level, we have 1 particle, and the highest level is again empty. So how to specify the macro state for this system? Macro state is equal to, so 3 particles in the ground level, 2 particles in the next level, then next level is 0, then fourth level has 1 particle, fifth level has 0. Okay, so if you specify the number of particles in each energy levels, each quantized energy levels of a system, that specification is called a macro state. So this is a possible macro state for the system. Okay, see this example, example number 2. In this example, see here also we have 5 quantized energy levels, but we have nearly 4 plus 2, 6 to 8 particles we have. Now, what is the macro state corresponds to this arrangement? So in the ground level we have 4 particle, next level we have 2 particle, then 1, and the last level is empty. So the macro state is given as 4, 2, 1, 1, 0. Right? So the specification of number of particles in each quantized energy levels, right, of a system is what we call as macro state. Right? See, for a given total energy and for a given total number of particles, many macro states are possible. Right? Yeah, so we are going to discuss all these things, right, as we go along. Right? Now, so I have introduced what is macro state. Macro state is nothing but specification of number of particles in each quantized energy levels correspond to the system. Now, the second term is microstate. Microstate, also called complexion, right? In some book, people are using the word microstate. In some other book, you can also see the word complexion. Both are one and the same. Okay, what is meant by microstate? See, each unique way of assigning a macro state of a system is called a microstate. I repeat, what is a microstate? Each unique way of getting a macro state of a system is called a microstate. What is meant by this? Say for example, see this example number 1. I have a macro state which is given as 1, 0, 1, 0. Right? See, I have 2 particles here. Okay, assume that the 2 particles are distinguishable particles, right? So I'm that's why I'm using different colors here. Okay, black and blue. This represent 1 particle and this represent another particle. Now listen, what is the macro state corresponds to this arrangement? Ground level has 1 particle, next level 0, next level 1, then the highest level is 0. So 1, 0, 1, 0 is the macro state. Now this macro state, right, can be obtained in 2 ways. What are they? Listen, keep the black one at the down and the blue one at the energy level 2e. Okay, this is one possible way of getting this macro state. What is the other possible way? Just swap these two. Okay, just swap these two. If you swap it, blue will come down and black will go up. Okay, this arrangement, listen, this arrangement also corresponds to the same macro state, correct? See, 1, 0, 1, 0. This is also corresponds to the same macro state. But this and this are not same. Okay, and these two are actually called microstates. So number of microstates associated with this macro state is 2. Are you able to understand? So what is microstate? Each unique way. So this is one way of getting the macro state. This is another way of getting the macro state. So each unique way of assigning a macro state of a system is called a microstate. So for this macro state, we have 2 possible microstates. Okay, yeah, I'll give one more example so that you'll get some clarity. Yeah, listen, now I have taken a macro state, right, corresponds to 1, 0, 3, 0. What is meant by this? 1 means I have a particle at the ground level. Now, in order to distinguish this particle, I'm using the letters A, B, C, D. So A, B, C, D are distinguishable particles. Okay, now listen, in the ground level we have 1 particle. Okay, the macro state is 1, 0, 3, 0. So ground level we should place 1 particle, next level should be empty, and next level should have 3 particles, and the highest level should be empty again. Yeah, so in this macro state, the particle A is placed at the ground level, and the remaining particle B, C, D are placed at the level corresponds to the energy 2E. Okay, now this is one possible way of getting the macro state 1030. Now what are the other possible ways? Now what to do? In the place of A, you put particle B. You put particle B here and keep the other particles above. Right? This is another possible way of getting the macro state. And what is the other one? Keep the particle C down and the remaining particle in level 2E. Similarly, keep the particle D down and keep the remaining particles in the level having energy 2E. Okay, so these are the four possible ways by which you can get this macro state. And each of these ways of getting the macro state are unique. Okay, they are all unique. And these different ways of assigning the macro state, right, are called microstates. So each one is called a microstate. So how many microstates are possible for this macrostate? Yeah, we have 4 microstates. Are you able to follow? So what are microstates? Microstates are nothing but each unique way of assigning a particular macrostate of a system is called a microstate. Okay, yeah. Then the next term is thermodynamic probability, right, which is usually designated with the symbol W or omega. What is thermodynamic probability? Now the number of microstates, okay, what is thermodynamic probability? The number of microstates that corresponds to a given macrostate of a system. Okay, see, for a given macrostate, how many microstates are possible? That is what we call as thermodynamic probability of that macrostate. I repeat, listen, for a particular macrostate, how many microstates are possible? Okay, the number of microstates that corresponds to a particular macrostate of a system is called its thermodynamic probability. Right? It is also called statistical weight. The other name for thermodynamic probability, W. Okay, why we are using the symbol W? Because it is also called statistical weight. Okay, that's why we are using the symbol W. Okay, so what is thermodynamic probability? It is the number of microstates that corresponds to a given macrostate of a system. See, you might have heard about mathematical probability. Mathematical probability, the range of mathematical probability is 0 to 1. Okay, the lowest possible value is 0 and the highest possible value is 1 for mathematical probability. But thermodynamic probability is not mathematical probability, it is different. For thermodynamic probability, the least possible value is 1 and the maximum possible value can be anything. Okay, yeah, so it can have any value of thermodynamic probability, right, above 1. Okay, before going to see some examples for thermodynamic probability, let me introduce the way to calculate thermodynamic probability for distinguishable particles. Okay, yeah. See, for distinguishable particles, the quantized energy levels may be non-degenerate. Okay, what is maybe non-degenerate? In each level we have only one state. In each energy level we have only one state. These are all called non-degenerate energy levels. That means the degeneracy of this level is 1. Okay, this level is also 1, this level also 1, this level also 1. Okay, if degeneracy of a level is 1, then it is called non-degenerate level. Okay, but for distinguishable particles, the energy level can also be degenerate. So in this case, we have for this level, right, we have so many energy states. So the number of energy states corresponds to this energy level is G0. Similarly, the energy levels corresponds to this level. The energy states corresponds to this level is G1. Okay, so the distinguishable particles can have energy levels which are non-degenerate. It can also have energy levels which are degenerate. Okay, now if the energy levels are non-degenerate, then thermodynamic probability can be calculated using this formula. See, in this lecture, I am not going to discuss how to get this formula. Okay, instead, I am going to use this formula to calculate thermodynamic probability. Okay, so just remember these formulas. Okay, you need not worry about how to get the formula, but there is a method available, but I'm not going to discuss here. So thermodynamic probability is equal to n factorial by pi into ni factorial. What is meant by this? Capital N represent total number of particles. So factorial of total number of particles divided by pi means multiplication. Okay, you have to multiply number of particles in each level. Okay, so ni factorial means how many particles present in the ground level. So factorial of that value into factorial of the number of particles in the next level, factorial of the number of particles in the next. Multiply all these factorial values, you'll get the denominator quantity. Okay, so that gives you thermodynamic probability for distinguishable particles if the levels are non-degenerate. Similarly, if the levels are degenerate, then we can use this formula to find the thermodynamic probability. Okay, where n factorial is factorial of total number of particles, pi represent multiplication, Gi means degeneracy corresponds to each level, or here Gi means ith level, Gi power ni divided by ni factorial. So this will give you thermodynamic probability for distinguishable particles if the energy levels are degenerate. Okay, then okay, next one, most probable macro state, also called equilibrium distribution. What is meant by most probable macro state? Listen, for a given total energy and a given total number of particles of a system, one or more macro states are may be possible for the system. Participants, listen carefully. See, if for a given total energy and for a given total number of particles of a system, one or more macro states are possible. Okay, and the macro state associated with the maximum number of microstates, also called maximum value of thermodynamic probability, okay, is called the most probable macro state or equilibrium distribution. I repeat, what is meant by most probable macro state? Listen, for a given system, for a given total energy and for the given total number of particles, right, many macro states may be possible, but among the macro state, the one which is having maximum value of thermodynamic probability, okay, is called the most probable macro state. Okay, now here I'm going to give you some examples, right, by which we can understand how to calculate number of macro state, okay, and how to find the thermodynamic probability, right, then how to identify which macro state is the most probable macro state. Okay, so here consider a system containing identical and distinguishable particles. So I'm going to take a system containing identical and distinguishable particles. Okay, suppose assume that I have a system which consists of 2 particles and let the total energy is 3. Okay, so for the given number of particle and given total energy, how many macro states are possible? Okay, and here temperature is constant, volume is constant. Okay, now listen. So assume that for the particle, these are the quantized energy levels possible, right? The ground level energy is 0, then the next level E, 2E, 3E, right? These are all energy values corresponds to the quantized energy levels. Okay, now we should get total energy as 3E, and the 2 particles are distinguishable, right? That's why I have used different color. Okay, so to get total energy 3E, right, what are the ways that you can place the particles such that total energy should be 3? Listen, the one possible way is this: keep one particle in 0 level and the other particle and the correspond particle in the level having energy 3. Now what is the energy? Total energy, see, for this particle energy is 0, whereas for this particle energy is 3, so total energy is 3. Now what is the macro state corresponds to this arrangement? The macro state is 1. This level has 1 particle, no particle here, no particle here, so 1, 0, 0, 1. So this is the macro state corresponds to this arrangement. Then see the another possible arrangement. Here I placed one particle in the energy level E and another particle in the energy level 2E. Now what is the total energy? See, for this particular energy is E, for this particular energy is 2E, so total energy is again 3E, so total energy remains same. right? But now this is a different macro state. Okay, what is the index? What is the index? The index is 0, 1, 1, 0. Okay, this is called occupation index. So occupation index is different. Therefore, this is a different macro state. Are you able to understand? So for two particle with the total energy 3, two macro states are possible. This is one macro state, this is another macro state. Two macro states are possible. Now the question is, among the two, which is most probable macro state? How to identify? For this you have to calculate the thermodynamic probability. Okay, so the particles are distinguishable and all the levels, see, all the levels are non-degenerate. So we can use the formula W is equal to n factorial divided by pi into ni factorial. Okay, so totally we have two particles, so 2 factorial divided by, in the ground level we have 1 factorial, so 1 factorial. Next level is mt 0 factorial, next level is mt 0 factorial, and the last level has 1 particle, so 1 factorial. So what's the value? 2 factorial is nothing but 2 into 1. 1 factorial is 1, 0 factorial is also 1, 0 factorial is 1, and 1 factorial is 1. So the answer is 2. Okay, so the thermodynamic probability associated with this macro state is 2. Similarly, what about the other one? So here also if you calculate the thermodynamic probability, you will end up with the same answer 2. So what does it indicate? It indicates that the two macro states are equally probable. So both the macro state 1 and 2 are equally probable. Listen, this is not the case for all systems. Okay, see for example, in the second example, now what I did here, I have introduced one more particle. Now our system consists of totally 3 particles, but total energy remains 3 only. Total energy is 3. Okay, temperature and volume are kept constant. Now for this, how many arrangements possible? Listen, so we should get total energy as 3, but now we have 3 particles. So what I'm going to do, first I'll place 2 particles in the ground level having energy 0 and 1 particle in the energy level having energy 3. Correct? Now what is the total energy? See, since these 2 particles placed in 0 energy level, okay, the energy of these 2 particles is 0, whereas this particle has energy 3. So what is the total energy? Total energy is 3. And what is the macro state for this arrangement? 2001. 2001 is the macro state for this arrangement. Now for this arrangement, what is the thermodynamic probability? Yeah, now we have total number of 3 particles 3. So 3 factorial by 2 factorial. Listen, if the levels are empty, you are going to place 0 factorial. 0 factorial is anyway 1. So you need not worry about the empty levels. Okay, so here we have 2 particle 2 factorial, and here we have 1 particle, so 1 factorial. And if you simplify this, you will get the answer as 3. Okay, so thermodynamic probability associated with this macro state is 3. Then the second way of getting the total energy 3 is given here. So you place 1 particle in 0 and place another particle in energy level having energy E, and place another particle having energy level having energy 3, sorry 2E. So for this particle energy is 0, for this particle energy is E, for this particle energy is 2E. So what is the total? Total energy is again 3 only. So this is another possible arrangement for the total energy 3E. Correct? What is the macro state for this? The macro state is 110, 1110. Right? And if you calculate thermodynamic probability, you will get the answer as 3 factorial. Total number of particles 3 factorial by 1 factorial into 1 factorial and 1 factorial, that gives you the answer as 6. Okay, then we have one more arrangement here. You place all the 3 particles in the energy level having energy E. So for each particle energy is E, therefore the total energy is again 3E. What is the macro state corresponds to this? 0, 3, 0, 0. And if you calculate thermodynamic probability, you will get the answer as 1. Now if you compare the thermodynamic probabilities of these 3 macro state, listen, this macro state has maximum value of thermodynamic probability. So the macro state 2, that is 1110, this macro state is the most probable macro state, okay, for this system. Are you able to follow? Okay, so what you have to do for a given system, for a given total energy and given total number of particles, you try to identify the most probable macro state. For this, what you have to do? First, you write all possible macro states and calculate thermodynamic probability for each of these macro states. Then identify which macro state has maximum thermodynamic probability. So the macro state having maximum value of thermodynamic probability is considered as the most probable macro state. Okay. So in these three macro state, this macro state, okay, there is a macro state having occupation index 1110, right, having maximum value of thermodynamic probability. So this is the most probable macro state. Okay. See, in a similar manner, as you increase number of particles, okay, as you increase number of particles, you may get more macro state, but one macro state comes out, okay, with the maximum value of thermodynamic probability. Okay, we call that macro state as the most probable macro state. Okay, now, so here I like to give these points which are very, very important. As the number of particle increases, okay, see point number 1, as the number of particle increases, one macro state becomes more probable than the other possible macro states of the system. Okay, one macro state becomes more probable. Okay, then second point, as the number of particle increases, I'm sorry, as the number of particle becomes Avogadro number or more. Okay, see here I just introduced 3 particle, 2 particle, 4 particle, 5 particle, like that. If you go to system having Avogadro number of particles or more than Avogadro number of particle, then one particular macro state becomes more and more probable than the sum of the probability of the other macro states, the sum of the thermodynamic probability of other macro states. So what is this? This is very, very important. See, if you go to very huge number of particles, if your system contains huge number of particles like Avogadro number, then one particular macro state becomes more and more probable than the sum of the thermodynamic probabilities of the other macro state. Even if you add thermodynamic probabilities of other macro states, okay, then the most probable macro state is uncomparable. Okay, it will have huge value of thermodynamic probability. Okay, then the most probable macro state of the system contributes almost 100% in the equilibrium properties of the system. Listen, see, for if you go to more number of particles, then one particular macro state become more and more probable, right? Then the equilibrium properties, right? The equilibrium properties correspond to the system, right? Is mainly depends on the most probable macro state. I'm not saying that with 100% the property depends upon the most probable macro state. No, I'm not saying like that. Almost, okay, almost 100%, right? The equilibrium properties of the system depends upon the most probable macro state. So the ultimate goal of statistical thermodynamics is to find the most probable macro state of the system, because all equilibrium properties depends on the most probable macro state. Okay, then principle of equal a priori probability. Yeah, this is a very, very important principle. What does this principle says? All microstates of all macro states of an isolated system are equally probable. What does it mean? See, I told you the most probable macro state, right, contributes almost 100% to the equilibrium properties. But it doesn't mean that, right, the microstates of other macro states, okay, they do not contribute. No, not like that. For listen, a system, right, a system will exist in all possible microstates of all possible macro states. Okay, a system may arise, right, or it will keep on, the system changes its microstates. All right, it will take all possible microstates of all possible macrostates. Okay, that's very, very important. So all microstates of all macrostates of an isolated system are equally probable. Okay, but the most probable macro state, since it has maximum number of microstates, okay, the system most of the time exists in most probable macrostates, right? Good. Then what is the goal of statistical thermodynamics? The ultimate goal of statistical thermodynamics is to find the most probable macro state of the system. Okay, why? Because why do we need to find this? Because the equilibrium properties of the system almost 100% depends on the most probable macro state of the system. Okay, then now the next question is how to find the most probable macro state. How to find? See here in the example that I gave here, see in which I took only 2 particle, 3 particle, 4 particle like that. These are all very small number of particle. So for this you can construct possible macro state, you can calculate thermodynamic probability, and you can find most probable macro state. Is it so? Is this the same idea is applicable? Is this okay? Is this idea is valid for a system which contain Avogadro number of particles? No, because if you go to Avogadro number of particles, it is really difficult to identify the most probable macro state. So, so we have to find some technique, okay, to identify the most probable macro state of the system. Okay, how to do that? Yeah, listen, we have a mathematical idea. I'll just show you here. The idea is this. Yeah, what's the idea? The idea is here. Listen, what I have to do. What we have to do is actually we should plot a graph connecting ln W versus number of particles in ith level. Okay, so in each macro state, okay, you find the number of particle in the ith level and plot ln W versus Ni. If you plot, you will get a curve. You will get a curve, right? Listen, this point, okay, the ln W corresponds to this point, right? Will give you the most probable macro state. But for this, you need not find that number of particles in each ith level of each of the macro state. Okay, and we have to plot the no, it's not necessary. What we can do, you just differentiate this. Listen, there is dou ln W by dou Ni. Okay, you know very well, if you differentiate ln W with respect to Ni, okay, you will get the slope, right? You know very well the slope is 0 at this point, right? So put this value equal to 0. So if you want this point, you can find the point directly here. Okay, so this is the maxima minima approach, right? So at the maxima and at minima, right, the first derivative of the function is supposed to be equal to 0. So dou ln W by dou Ni, if you put this value equal to 0, you will get directly the most probable macro state. This is the mathematical idea we have. Okay, now, so by using this idea, we can find the most probable macro state of the system. Okay, then. Okay, now, so I have given this idea. Now what we have to do is so suppose if distinguishable particles are given, okay, you can use either this formula W equal to n factorial by pi into Ni factorial. Okay, and what we have to do, take logarithm for this, you'll get ln W, then differentiate ln W versus dou Ni and dou Ni and put the value equal to 0. This is the idea we are going to utilize to find the most probable macro state for a system. Okay, so if you know the general formula for thermodynamic probability, then you can find the most probable macro state directly. Okay, yeah, this is the approach. Now, here one thing is very important. Since these numbers n is capital N represent total number of particles and Ni represent number of particles in each level. Right? Listen, if you take Avogadro number of particles or more than Avogadro number of particles, this n factorial and Ni factorial are very huge numbers. Okay, so you cannot calculate these huge factorial values in ordinary calculator. Okay, even in computer it is very difficult. So how to calculate the n factorial values? Okay, where n is very large number. It's a very large number. So how to calculate n factorial value? For this, okay, the scientist is a mathematician. He introduced a law called Stirling's law, Stirling's rule, right? Stirling's approximation, right? Stirling's STIR. Stirling's approximation. using Stirling approximation, okay, you can find factorial of a large number. According to Stirling's approximation, ln n factorial can be given as approximately equal to n ln n minus n. Okay, so in statistical thermodynamics, we are going to handle system with huge number of particles. So this formula going to help us, right, in determining the most probable macro state of the system. Okay, and listen, this formula will give you almost good result when n is very large. If n is very small, say n equal to 3 or 4 or 5, then this formula will never give good result. Okay, so this formula is valid for huge value of n. Okay, so keep this in your mind. Then now we'll start with the Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics. Right, this statistics is applicable for identical. Okay, it is applicable for identical, distinguishable, right? Identical, distinguishable, and independent particles. Independent particles. So, if you want to use Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics, okay, the particles should be identical. Identical means they look alike. Size should be same. Okay, alike. So they are identical. They're supposed to be identical, and the particles must be distinguishable. You can distinguish one particle from other particle at any instant of time. Then third one, the particle should be independent. What does mean by independent? There should not be any attraction or repulsion exists between particles. Okay, only for those particles we can apply Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics. Okay, yeah. The particles which obey this statistics are called Maxwellon or are called Maxwellon. Okay, yeah, Maxwellon. Right, particles which obey Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics are called Maxwellons. Then here, listen, in each of the quantized energy levels, you can place any number of particles. Right, any number of particles can be placed, or we can say no restriction. No restriction, right, on the number of particles. No restriction on the number of particles in each level. In each level, right? You can place any number of particles, right? Then here total number of particles is a constant, total energy should be constant, and volume also constant. Okay, so we have to keep n, e, v are constants, right? Okay, now for distinguishable particles, right, the particles, listen, may have non-degenerate energy levels, right? The particles may have non-degenerate energy levels, or the particles may have degenerate energy levels. Degenerate energy levels, right? It can be of any of these two types. If the levels are non-degenerate, then to find the thermodynamic probability, we have the general formula, right? N factorial by pi into Ni factorial, right? If the levels are degenerate, then we can use the formula W is equal to N factorial into pi into Gi power Ni by Ni factorial. Okay, so depending upon the energy levels, listen, how to find these energy levels? These energy levels can be obtained by solving Schrödinger equation, right? So from quantum mechanics, we can obtain these energy levels. Are you able to follow, right? Then after getting the energy levels, we have to distribute the particles, right, corresponding to the total energy E and total number of particles N. Okay, so for distinguishable particle, we have these two formulas, right? Now, how to get the most probable macro state, right, using the general formula, right? Now listen. So suppose if I take this formula pi into W is equal to N factorial by pi into Ni factorial. Participants, here I am not going to give you the complete derivation steps. Okay, I am going to give you only the ideas and the final results, right? So if you start with this, what you have to do, take logarithm, right? Then apply Stirling's formula. Okay, then differentiate differentiate ln W with respect to dou Ni and put the value equal to 0. Okay, so dou ln W by dou Ni, put this value equal to 0. Okay, but you will get maximum But there is a problem here. What's the problem? You have to maximize the function W. You have to maximize the function W. So we have to differentiate ln W versus Ni. Differentiate ln W versus Ni and put the value equal to 0. We won't get maximum directly here because we have to maximize the function under the constraint that total energy of the system should be constant and total number of particles should be constant. So keeping these two constant, if you want to maximize a function, okay, you cannot do by our ordinary method. So we have to apply Lagrange's undetermined multiplier method. Okay, so we introduce some parameters alpha and beta. They are called Lagrange undetermined multipliers. I am not going to give you the details of this, but remember the value of beta is 1 by kBt. Okay, the value of beta, alpha and beta are called Lagrange's undetermined multipliers, and the value of beta is 1 by kBt. Okay, so if you use this idea, if you maximize the function using Lagrange undetermined multiplier method, then you will get the final result as Ni by n, number of particle in the ith level, by total number of particle equal to e power minus ei by kBt, okay, divided by sum of e power minus ei by kBt. You will get this formula if the levels, if the energy levels, if the quantized energy levels are non-degenerate. Suppose if the levels are degenerate, then you will get this formula, that is Ni by n equal to Gi into e power minus ei by kBt, okay, divided by summation of Gi into e power minus ei by kBt. Okay, we will get this formula if the levels are not degenerate. Okay, yeah. Now, so I didn't do any derivation. Okay, I'm giving you the final expressions directly, right? Now listen. So this is the formula what we call as Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution. What this formula gives you? This formula gives you number of particles in the ith level of the most probable macro state. Listen carefully, very important. What is this formula actually tells you? This formula tells you okay, number of particles in the ith level of a most probable macro state. Okay, then, and this denominator quantity, right? This denominator quantity is called is denoted by the symbol Q, called single particle partition function, right? It is called single particle partition function. Or I can use, we have we can also say that Q as molecular partition function, single particle partition function, or molecular partition function. Are you able to understand? So what is molecular partition function? Q is equal to summation of Gi into e power minus ei by kBt. Okay, kB is Boltzmann constant, T is temperature in Kelvin, ei is the energy of the ith level, and Gi gives you degeneracy of the ith level. Okay, then we'll see some of the important applications of this formula. Okay, what are they? Ni by capital N equal to Gi into e power minus ei by kBt, okay, divided by partition function Q. Okay, now suppose if you take ground level, right, for ground state, see, for ground state we usually keep the ground state energy as 0. Participant, this is very important. See, for a given particle, if you find the energies of the quantized levels, right, the ground state energy that is E0, right, it need not be 0 always. It can be any value. But in statistical thermodynamics, what we have to do, we should make the ground state energy value as 0. We have to make it. Okay, say for example, how to do that? Say, suppose if the ground state energy is minus 15, I want to make it plus 0. What to do? Add plus 15 to all the levels, right? Add plus 15 to all the levels, so automatically the ground level value becomes 0. So in statistical thermodynamics, all right, we keep the ground state energy as 0. Okay, so for ground state, energy of the ground state is taken as 0, right? Then if I substitute this here for ground state, you'll get, so n0 particles in the ground state divided by total number of particles n equal to, say if I, in the place of ei, if I substitute this 0 here, you'll get e power 0. E power 0 is 1. And degeneracy of the ground state, okay, usually the degeneracy of the ground state should be 1, right, in general. So if I assume the ground state degeneracy as 1, so what will I get? I'll get 1 by q, or we can give q is equal to n by n0. So what is q? Q is nothing but, okay, the ratio of total number of particles divided by number of particles in the ground state. Okay, suppose if I say q is equal to 2, what does it indicate? If partition function is 2, what does it indicate? It indicates that, listen, how will you get 2? Suppose if total number of particles is 100, if you have 50 particles in the ground level, then you will get the answer is 2. So what does it indicate? It indicates 50% of population is present in the ground state. Remaining 50 is present in excited levels. Okay, if q is equal to 2, it means 50% population is present in the ground state. Okay, suppose if q is 4, what does it indicate? Okay, suppose if I have 100 particles and 25 particles present in ground state, then I'll get the answer as 4. So it indicates that 25% population, 25% of particles are present in the ground state, remaining particles are present in the excited state. That's the meaning for partition function. Are you able to understand? So if partition function is 4, it means 25% of population is present in the ground state. Are you clear? Next. Then Q is a molecular partition function, right? It's a molecular partition function. It also gives you an idea that how many states are accessible. Okay, suppose if Q is equal to say 50, it means 50 energy states are accessible by the particle. I repeat, this is another meaning for molecular partition function. If molecular partition function value is 50, it means, okay, 50 energy states are accessible by the particle. Okay, yeah. Now molecular partition function Q, right, actually made up of 4 important partition functions. They are translational, rotational, vibrational, electronic, and one more nuclear, but we won't consider nuclear usually, right? So total partition function, total molecular partition function is actually the product of, right, these 4 partition function: translation, rotation, vibration, and electronic. Are you able to follow? Yeah. So before going to the detail of these, okay, I will give you one important information that, see, partition function Q is equal to Gi into e power minus Ei by kBt. This is general formula. Okay, we can expand this as for the ground state G0 into e power minus E0 by kBt. But for ground state we keep energy as 0. Therefore this become 1 plus G1 for the first exit level, G1 into e power minus E1 by kBt, right, plus G2 into e power minus E2 by kBt, like that it goes. Okay, now listen, this is very important. As temperature approaches infinity, what will happen to the partition function? If temperature approaches infinity, see here, if I put infinity here, 1 by infinity is 0, so this term becomes 0. E power 0 is 1, so what we'll get is, listen, here we have G0 plus, here we'll get G1, here we will get G2, here we'll get G3, like that it goes. So as temperature approaches infinity, okay, the partition function is equal to sum of degeneracies of each of these level. I repeat, when temperature approaches infinity, what is partition function? Partition function is equal to sum of the degeneracies of each of the levels, right? Then similarly, what will happen if temperature approaches 0 Kelvin? If temperature approaches 0 Kelvin, what will happen to the value of the partition function Q? Q is equal to, see, this is the formula, G0 plus G1 into e power minus E1 by kBT, right? Plus G2 into e power minus E2 by kBT. Okay, like that it goes, right? Now, when temperature approaches 0, okay, if you put 0 here, something by 0 is infinity, right? So you'll get e power minus infinity. E power minus infinity can be written as 1 by e power plus infinity. 1 by e power infinity is infinity. 1 by infinity is 0. So it means when temperature approaches 0, this term becomes 0. Okay, because this is 0. So if you multiply by this, you'll get the answer is 0. So this term becomes 0. This term becomes, all the terms become 0 except G0. Therefore, when temperature approaches 0 Kelvin, partition function becomes equal to the degeneracy of the ground level. Okay, so what happens when temperature approaches infinity? Similarly, what happens when temperature approaches 0 Kelvin to the partition function? Okay, then next point, this is another important point. Listen, so according to Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics, the number of particles in the ith level of a most probable macro state can be given as Ni by N equal to Gi into e power minus Ei by kBT divided by partition function Q. Similarly, I'll take some jth level of the same most probable macro state, right? So number of particles in the jth level of the same most probable macro state can be given as Gi into e power minus Ej by kBT by Q. Okay, if I divide these two, you'll get Ni by Nj. Okay, if I divide left hand side, capital N get cancel, I'll get Ni by Nj. Similarly here, so sorry, this is Gj. Okay, this is Gj, right? Yeah, so here I'll get Gi by Gj, degeneracy of the ith level by degeneracy of the jth level into e power minus Ei. I'll take minus is common, so e power minus Ei minus Ej over kBT. Okay, we will get an expression like this. Q get cancelled here. Okay, so what is the use of this formula? It will give you the ratio of population, right, of two levels, okay, in the most probable macro state. Okay, so you can compare the ratio of the population of two levels, right, in the most probable macro state of the system using this formula. Okay, then, so now I have introduced a different partition function. Let me start with the translational partition function first. Translational partition function. Okay, so we can write general formula Q is equal to Gi into e power minus, in the place of energy I'll put ET, translational energy, by kBT. This is a general formula for partition function, and we know very well translational energies, okay, in under confined condition, translational energies are quantized. What is the formula? N square h square by 8 ml square for particle in 1D box, right? And if you go to particle in 3D box, we have another formula, right? Listen, using the particle in 1D box method, right? If you derive the expression for translational partition function, you will end up with this translational partition function for one dimension as 2 pi m kBT whole power 1 by 2 by h into L. For one dimension you will get, but you know very well a vessel cannot be one dimension, right? Vessel is a third dimensional one. So what is the translational partition function for third dimension? For third dimension, you have to multiply for this for each dimension. So you'll get 2 pi m kBT whole power 3 by 2 by h cube into L into L into L, L cube. L cube is nothing but volume of the vessel. Are you able to understand? So you'll get this formula. You can also rewrite this formula as, keep the V as such, bring all this term to the denominator, okay, and that term is represented as lambda cube. What is lambda here? Lambda is nothing but h by square root of 2 pi m kBT. okay, where this lambda is called thermal de Broglie wavelength. Okay, what is lambda? Lambda is called thermal de Broglie wavelength. Okay, so this, okay, then now we'll discuss about the other partition functions. Okay, listen, translation partition function, right, is given by the formula V by lambda cube, where lambda is the thermal de Broglie wavelength. Okay, translation partition function values are usually very large. If you calculate translation partition function, you'll get the answer usually as 10 power 30 to 10 power 40 range. What does it indicate? It indicates that, okay, 10 power 30 translational states or 10 to the power 40 translational states are accessible by the particle at a given temperature. Okay, so that means particle can access many translational states. Why? Because translational levels are so close. Okay, they are very closely spaced, so particles can access many levels. Okay, now the next partition function that I am going to discuss is rotational partition function, QR. What is rotational partition function? Yeah, rotational partition function, right? The general expression is summation G J. Rotation levels are usually represented as J, so Gj into e power minus Ej by kBt. Okay, so if you use this formula, it is called summation formula. Using this also you can calculate rotational partition function, right? You can also derive integrated formula, right, for rotational partition function. Listen, in the translation partition function, we have used integrated formula directly because in translation, the energy levels, translational levels are so closely spaced. So we can convert summation into integration directly there. But in the case of rotational partition function, we should be little careful. Why? Because if the energy levels, rotational levels are very closely spaced, if the rotational levels are closely spaced, then we can convert this summation into integration. But it is not so for all the molecules. See, in the case of molecules like iodine, right, large size molecules where the energy levels are so closely spaced, rotation levels are so closely spaced, so we can integrate and we can form an integrated formula. But if you go to molecules such as hydrogen, right, for these molecules the gaps are so large. If gaps are large, then you cannot convert the summation into integration. So for this we have to use summation formula only, where, okay, no other way. Whereas for molecule like iodine, we can use integrated formula, right? So how to do integrated formula? I'm not going to do the derivation, but I'll give you the idea. Degeneracy corresponds to each jth level, jth rotation level is given by the formula 2j plus 1. And what is the energy? Ej is equal to Bj into j plus 1. Okay, this is for rigid diatomic rotor. Okay, for rigid diatomic rotor, okay, we can use this formula. Okay, yeah. Now, so if you use if you assume the molecules as rigid diatomic molecules, then you will end up with this formula. It is called integrated formula. QR equal to rotational partition function equal to 8 pi square I kBt by sigma into h square. Finally, we will end up with this formula, 8 pi square I kBt by sigma into h square. This is actually called integrated formula. Integrated formula. When we can use integrated formula? Yes, if the rotational level spacing are very close, we can use integrated formula. Okay, molecules like iodine, right, and heavier molecules, bromine, right, for these molecules we can use this formula. But if the energy level spacings are large, then we have to use the summation formula. What is summation formula? Gj into e power minus Ej by kBt. We have to use only this formula. Okay, so in the case of translation, we always use integrated formula, whereas for rotational partition function, right, we have to, depending upon the molecule, we have to use either integrated formula or the summation formula. Okay, so here 8 pi are constant. What is I? I is called moment of inertia. Okay, and I is equal to, you know very well, mu into r square, the formula. What is Kb? Boltzmann constant. T is temperature, and sigma is called symmetry number, and h is called the Planck's constant. Okay, how to find the symmetry number? Yeah, it's very easy. Listen, some point groups like yeah, for certain point groups like say Cn, C infinity point group, C1 point group, Cs point group, and Ci point group. Molecule belongs to these point groups. For this, the symmetry number is 1. Okay, and molecules belong to point group like Cn, Cnh, and Cnv. Right, for these, the symmetry number is given by n. Okay, order of the principal rotation axis. Then molecule belongs to the point group Dn, DNH, and DND, right? Dihedral groups. For dihedral group, the symmetry number is 2n. Okay, then molecule belongs to D infinity H, right? For this, the symmetry number is 2. And for molecule belongs to tetrahedral point group, symmetry number is 12. And molecule belongs to octahedral point group, symmetry number is 24. Okay, so depending upon the molecule, we have to substitute the value of sigma, and we have to calculate the rotational partition function. Okay, and this rotational partition function can also be written as, see here, rotational partition function QR can also be written as KBT by sigma into BHC. Okay, sigma into BHC. What is sigma? Sigma is symmetry number. What is B here? B with a tidy above. This is called, okay, rotational constant. This is called rotational constant, right, in terms of wave number unit. Rotational constant in terms of wave number unit, right? Yeah. Listen, for molecules like HCl, say if we take HCl 35, where chlorine is having isotope 35, the value of B is 10.595 roughly. Okay, and if you go to DCl 35, okay, what I'm doing? I'm keeping chlorine as such. I'm changing the isotope of hydrogen into deuterium. If you change the isotope, listen, the value for this molecule is 5.447. The value is reduced in a larger extent. Similarly, if you go to HCl 37, the value is 10.578. See, compare these two. If we compare these two, if we keep hydrogen as such, if we change the isotope of chlorine, if we change the heavier isotope, okay, the change in rotational quantum number is not a significant one. Whereas if we change the lighter isotope, hydrogen into deuterium, then there's a drastic change, right, in the rotational constant value. Okay, as rotational constant increases, then rotational partition function decreases. Okay, yeah, because as rotational constant increases, as B increases, see, as the rotational constant increases, right, rotational partition function will decrease. What does it indicate? As rotational constant increases, the gap between adjacent level increase. If gap increases, then molecule cannot access a higher levels, because to access higher levels, molecule require very high energy. Okay, so at a given temperature, molecule can access only to some limited number of levels, right? So rotational partition function is less when B is very large. Okay, then if you take iodine molecule, for iodine molecule, the rotational constant value, see this 0.03735, it's very small. If rotational constant is very small, okay, very small, then the gap between adjacent levels are very less. Okay, the levels are so closely spaced. When the levels are so closely spaced, then molecule can access the more number of states. Okay, now so having said this, now I'll introduce one more information. See, in the formula of rotational partition function here, okay, kBT by sigma B into HC, right? What I'm going to do, keep temperature as such, bring all the remaining quantities to the denominator. That quantity is represented as, okay, except sigma. Keep the sigma as such, bring all the remaining quantities. The remaining quantities are represented as theta r. What is this theta r? Theta r is called characteristic rotational temperature. Characteristic rotational temperature. Okay. Yeah, listen. This characteristic rotational temperature, if the temperature of the gas is greater than or equal to 10 times the characteristic rotational temperature. Listen, very, very important. If the temperature of the system, right, if it is greater than or equal to 10 times the characteristic rotational temperature of the system, then we can use the integrated formula as such, T by sigma into theta r. We can use integrated formula for any molecule. Okay, provided that molecule should be stable at this temperature. I repeat. See, I told you we have integrated formula, and we have summation formula. Okay, if you want to use integrated formula for all the molecule, okay, you have to see this condition. If the temperature of the system, if it is greater than or equal to 10 times the characteristic rotational temperature of the molecule, then you can use this integrated formula directly. Okay, yeah. So this is the formula we use to calculate rotational partition function for a diatomic rigid rotor. For a diatomic rigid rotor. Okay, yeah. We have other rotors, spherical rotors, and we have asymmetric rotors, symmetric rotors. Many examples are there. I don't want to go into the details of this because in this lecture we cannot cover everything. Okay, now I will discuss the next partition function called vibrational partition function QV. Vibrational partition. See, if you go to vibrational partition function, listen, vibrational energy levels are always having large gap. Okay, the gap between vibration levels are very, very large. So in this case, integration formula is not at all applicable. Okay, integration formula is applicable for translational partition function. For rotational partition function, for some molecule we can use integrated formula. For some other molecule we have to use summation formula. If you come to vibrational partition function, no doubt we have to use only summation formula. So QV is equal to G degeneracy of the vibrational state e power minus EV by kBT. This is a general expression, right? If you derive, you will get the final expression as QV equal to 1 by 1 minus e power minus h nu by kBT. You will get this formula if you assume this is without 0 point energy, right? Without 0 point energy, right? This is the formula for vibrational partition function. QV is equal to 1 by 1 minus e power minus h nu by kBT. Okay, yeah. Then suppose if you take say carbon dioxide molecule. For carbon dioxide molecule, how many normal modes are there? 3n minus linear molecule, no? So 3n minus 5. N is 3 here. 3 atoms are there. So n is 3. 3 into 3 9. 9 minus 5 equal to 4. Okay. So we have 4 normal modes. In that, one is symmetric stretching, one mode is asymmetric stretching, and the remaining 2 are bending. These bending modes, okay, these 2 bending modes have same frequency. Okay, they have same frequency, so we can say that the 2 bending modes are degenerate, right? So if it is for this system, how to calculate the total vibrational partition function? Total vibrational partition function is equal to vibrational partition function corresponds to symmetric stretching into vibrational partition function corresponds to asymmetric stretching AS into vibrational partition function square corresponds to bending. Why I put square here? Because we have two normal modes which are degenerate. Okay, so we put the square here. Are you able to follow? So you can calculate the total vibrational partition function for a molecule using this formula. right? Then I'll give one more information here. See, the quantity, listen, h nu by kb, right? I'm going to take this h nu by kb as theta, big theta v. This is called characteristic vibrational temperature. Listen, if the, okay, so h nu by kb, one second, okay, so h nu in the vibrational partition function, without 0 point energy, we can write 1 by 1 minus e power minus h nu by kbt. So this is the formula for vibrational partition function, and I told you h nu by kb is a constant for a given molecule. So you can write this as 1 by 1 minus e power theta v by t, theta v by t, where theta v is called characteristic vibrational temperature. Listen, if temperature of the system, if it is greater than or equal to 10 times the characteristic vibrational temperature, then this formula gets simplified. You will get vibrational partition function QV as T by theta V, T by theta V. Okay, so this is the formula we use to calculate the vibrational partition function whenever temperature is 10 times the characteristic vibrational temperature of the system. Okay, now, so remember these formulas. These are all some useful formulas for CSIR net examinations. Okay, now we'll see the last vibrational partition function, that is electronic partition function. What is electronic partition function? Listen, definitely electronic levels are so large, the gap between adjacent electronic levels are very high. So we have to use only summation formula, right? So Q is equal to summation of GE into e power minus electronic energy by kBT. Okay, this is the formula we should use, and if you derive, you'll get for most of the case, you'll get QE, that is electronic partition function, as the degeneracy of the ground state. Okay, right, for most of the case, right, the electronic the electronic partition function will be approximately equal to the degeneracy of the ground state, right? Yes, how to get the degeneracy of the ground state? Degeneracy of the ground state for electronic levels can be obtained using the formula 2J plus 1, right? Yeah, so use this formula and you can calculate the degeneracy. Okay, yeah. So as far as electronic partition function is concerned, okay, the value of electronic partition function for most of the cases is equal to the degeneracy of the ground state. Okay, then in problem session we'll discuss problems using these expressions. Okay, now, so we have discussed translational partition function, rotational partition function, vibrational partition function, and electronic partition functions. Okay, now I'll introduce canonical partition function. Canonical partition function. Canonical partition, right, function. Canonical partition function. Yes, how to do that? Listen, I don't want to go into the details of this, right? Listen, Maxwell Boltzmann, right? Boltzmann committed a mistake, right? That he assumed all the gaseous particles as distinguishable particles, right? But later Gibbs found that Gibbs found this mistake and he made some correction, right, using the idea of ensembles, right? So he introduced this canonical partition function, right? Canonical partition function is given by the symbol capital Q. Canonical partition function is related to molecular partition function as Q is equal to Q power n in the case of distinguishable particles, right? In the case of distinguishable particles, the canonical partition function is given as q power n. And in the case of indistinguishable particles, right, we have to divide this q power n by n factorial. That will give you canonical partition function in the case of indistinguishable particles. So the indistinguishability correction, right, was actually introduced by Gibbs, right? I don't want to go into the details of those things, right? Just remember how canonical partition function is related to molecular partition function of the system. Okay. Then in ensemble, in ensemble, what is ensemble? Ensemble is nothing but a collection of identical units of a system, right? I'll just introduce what are the different types of ensembles we have, right? We have canonical ensemble, we have micro-canonical ensemble, micro-canonical ensemble. Then we have grand canonical ensemble, We have three types of ensembles, right? The idea of ensemble was introduced by Gibbs. Okay, we have three types of ensembles, right? Listen, this is very, very important because based on this, some questions were already appeared in CSIR examination. So try to remember this, right? In the case of canonical ensemble, right, we should keep volume, temperature, and number of particles constant. Volume, temperature, and number of particles should be kept constant for canonical ensembles. And for micro-canonical ensembles, we should keep number of particles, volume, and energy, total energy as constant. Energy of each unit as constant, right? Then grand canonical ensemble. What is grand canonical ensemble? In grand canonical ensemble, we should keep chemical potential, volume, and temperature as constant. Okay. Yeah. Listen, just for understanding purpose, I'll say like this. Listen, what is meant by canonical ensemble? Canonical ensemble is something similar to closed system, right? In thermodynamics, it's something similar to closed. In closed system, right? Volume is constant, the total number of particles is constant, and you take temperature also as constant. Okay. What is micro-canonical ensemble? It is something similar to isolated system. Isolated system. What is isolated system? Number of particle constant, volume constant, energy also constant. That is called isolated system. What is grand canonical ensemble? This is something similar to open system. In open system, number of particles is not constant. See, n is not there. So remember in this way so that you can easily identify the different ensembles for systems. Okay. Then, yeah. So these are all the informations regarding the Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics and the corresponding corrections. Okay. Now we'll go to the next statistics called quantum statistics. The first one is Fermi-Dirac statistics. Fermi-Dirac statistics. Yeah. This statistics is applicable for identical, indistinguishable, and independent particles. Right? Then here one important thing is the particles which obey Fermi-Dirac statistics are called fermions. Particles which obey Fermi-Dirac statistics are called fermions. Then these fermions, okay, must have half-integer spin. Okay, here the particles have spin character. Okay, so for fermions, right, fermions supposed to have half-integer spin value. Okay, examples: electron, proton, neutron, etc. Right, these are all particles having half-integer spin. Then number 4, since they have half-integer spin, right, it should obey Pauli principle. What is the Pauli principle for fermions? The total wave function, right? Total wave function should be anti-symmetric. Total wave function should be anti-symmetric with respect to okay, exchange of any two particle, with respect to exchange of any two identical fermions. Any two identical fermions. So if you exchange any two identical fermions, then the total wave function should be antisymmetric. Are you able to follow? Then one more additional condition is total number of particles is constant, total energy is constant, okay, and total volume should be constant. Then one more information I forgot. What is this? Listen, in each state, okay, in each energy level, you may have so many states. In each state, you can place only one fermion. That's very, very important, right? Listen, fermions have off integer spin. So in each state, we can place only one fermion. Are you able to understand? Yeah, so these are the postulates of Fermi-Dirac statistics. Okay, using this postulate, we can derive the expression for number of particles in the ith level of the most probable macro state. Okay, so first I'll give you the thermodynamic probability expression. Okay, we have method to derive this, but I'm not going to do. I'm going to give you only the final expression, right? So thermodynamic probability is given as pi is equal to pi into gi factorial by ni factorial into gi minus ni factorial. Okay, gi minus ni factorial. This is the formula, right? What does it indicate? Listen, just for understanding purpose, I'll give this problem. Suppose, assume that I have a level which has 3 states, and I have 2 particles now. I have 2 particles. In how many ways these 2 particles can be distributed in these 3 states? Okay, right? This you can calculate using the formula W equal to, right? Yeah, here what is the degeneracy of this level? Degeneracy is 3, so 3 factorial by number of particles is 2, so 2 factorial, and 3 minus 2 is 1, so 1 factorial. So the answer is 3 into 2 factorial, 2 factorial to can cancel, the answer is 3. So you can arrange the 2 particle in 3 ways. See, this is one way, or you can arrange the particle as put one first particle here and this last particle and the second particle in the last state, or you can place it in this way. Okay, so these are the 3 possible ways by which you can arrange the 2 particles in 3 states. Are you able to follow? Right? Yeah. So, I just showed you how this formula is valid, right? For the system containing off integer particles. Okay. Now listen. Yeah. In actual system, see, each level has number of degenerate states. Okay. So ground level has some degeneracy G naught. And let us assume n0 particles are present in the ground state, right? For this level, we can calculate the thermodynamic probability using the formula W, okay? So W naught will give you thermodynamic probability associated with the ground state. Similarly, thermodynamic probability associated with the first excited level, okay? It has degeneracy G1 and number of particles N1, right? What is the thermodynamic probability? Thermodynamic probability is W1. Like this, we have so many levels. For each energy level, we can calculate thermodynamic probability. Now, multiply all the thermodynamic probability, you will get the total thermodynamic probability, which is represented as omega. Omega is equal to product of all these things, W0, W into W1, into W2, into etc. etc. Are you able to follow? Now, you take the logarithm of omega and differentiate this dou ln omega. Okay, I'm sorry, I'll write clearly. This is the method, you know, right? General formula is there, right? Differentiate omega. If I take logarithm of omega and differentiate this ln omega, right? Dou ln omega with respect to number of particles in the ith level, then put that value equal to 0. As I told before, you will never get the maximum value directly, because we have to maximize this function under the constraint that total energy should be constant and total number of particles should be constant. So again, we have to go for Lagrange's undetermined multiplier. So using that, you can derive the final expression as, I'll show the final expression here. The final expression is Ni by Gi, okay, Ni by Gi equal to 1 by e power alpha plus beta into EI, okay, plus 1. This is the expression for Fermi-Dirac statistics, which gives you number of particles in the ith level of the most probable macro state of a system containing identical fermions. Are you able to follow? Okay. Right. Then now we'll see the last statistics, that is Bose-Einstein statistics. Bose-Einstein statistics. Okay. Here the particles should be identical. These are the assumptions made. Particles should be identical. Particles should be indistinguishable. Right? Indistinguishable. Okay. Then particles should be independent. Okay, independent. So under this assumption, yeah, for this type of particle we can apply Bose-Einstein statistics. Okay. Then here the particles which obey Bose-Einstein statistics are called bosons. Then the particles have integer spin value. Okay. Then you can place any number of particle, right? Suppose if you have many states, okay, in each state you can place any number of particle you want, right? So there is no restriction on the number of particles in each state. Okay. And here the total wave function, right, should be symmetric with respect to exchange of two identical bosons. Then last one, total energy, total number of particle and volume are kept constant. Okay. Using this assumption, right, using these postulates, right, and this is the general expression for thermodynamic probability, which is pi into Ni plus Gi minus 1 factorial, okay, divided by Ni factorial, right, into Gi minus Ni factorial. This is the formula we use to calculate the thermodynamic probability of the system. Okay. Yeah. I'm sorry, this is Gi minus 1. One second, I made a mistake. This is Gi minus 1, right, for Maxwell, for Bose-Einstein statistics. Okay. So this is the general formula for thermodynamic probability. Okay. Then we have to take a logarithm, then differentiate this with respect to Ni, put the value equal to 0. Then we should use Lagrange undetermined multiplier. Finally, we get this formula. Okay, Ni by Gi equal to 1 by e power alpha plus beta into Ei minus 1. Okay. This will give you number of particles in the ith level of the most probable macro state of a system containing identical bosons. Okay. Yeah. So this is the formula. Then now I'll give you some important information, that is how to connect classical thermodynamics and quantum mechanics or statistical thermodynamics, right? See, the approach, okay, this connection was actually given by Boltzmann. How to determine thermodynamic functions using the idea of statistical mechanics, right? This connection was first, this connective equation was first given by Boltzmann. It is called Boltzmann law. What is Boltzmann law? S is equal to Kb ln W. Yeah, through this equation, right, we are going to connect. What is W? W is the thermodynamic probability. What is S? S is the entropy. So this is the first relation which connects the thermodynamic function, right, and the thermodynamic probability. Are you able to understand? Using this connection, right, we can derive expression for entropy, internal energy, Gibbs free energy, right, in terms of molecular partition functions. Okay. Yeah, let me give the equations. I'm not going to derive. I'll give you the equation, but this is the equation by which all other equations are derived. Okay. So internal energy U is given as U is equal to N into kB T square, okay, dou ln Q by dou T at constant volume, right? This is the expression for internal energy, right? How internal energy is related to the molecular partition function Q, okay? Then the second expression. Now how to relate that is entropy and partition function, okay? Yes, we have relation. What is that? Entropy is equal to, I'll give you the formula. Entropy is equal to d by dt, right, into kBT ln capital Q, right, at constant volume. At constant volume. What is capital Q? Capital Q is canonical partition function, and you know very well Q is equal to Q power n. Q is equal to Q power n for distinguishable particles, and Q is equal to Q power n by n factorial for indistinguishable particles. Okay, I have given the formula already. So just giving this information, right? So Q is nothing but canonical partition function, right? Using this formula, you can calculate entropy of a system, right? Then listen, in the next lecture, we are going to do numerical problems where I will give examples and how to calculate these thermodynamic functions, right? Using the partition functions, right? Then how Helmholtz energy is connected with the partition function. Helmholtz energy A is given as kB T ln capital Q, where capital Q is canonical partition function. Then how to measure, how to calculate pressure of the system. Pressure of the system can be calculated using this formula. P is equal to kBT into dou by dou V of ln Q at constant temperature. Using this formula, you can calculate pressure, right? Then what is the formula for Gibbs free energy? Yes, we can calculate Gibbs free energy also, right? Which is given as minus nRT ln molecular partition function Q by total number of particles N. Using this formula, we can calculate the Gibbs free energy. Okay, so using these expressions, okay, we can calculate the thermodynamic functions, right? How to utilize these equations, that we'll discuss under the next lecture. Okay, that is by solving numerical problems, right? Okay, I stopped here. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Thank you.